uh, accept and acknowledge the paradox of the goals. That's the first point. I think we can think about strategies that
Hello everyone, welcome to the Actionable ESG Talk series brought to you by AKFI Actionable Knowledge Foundational Institute, the world's first nonprofit industry association committed to bridging the gap between ESG, sustainability, and digital transformation. My name is Isabella. I am the co-host here with Manuel, another co-host, also the executive director at the AKFI, and our special guest today, Farley. Thank you for joining us. Welcome.
my pleasure to be here.
Very nice to see you.
And thanks to this talk series, we get to connect with great minds together to discuss the current state and the future state of ESG, sustainability, and digital transformation. A little bit about Farley, our special guest today. Farley has over 100 international publications appearing in conferences, and he also co-authored 2 books. One is called The Organizational and Technological Implications of Cognitive Machines, and the other one is called Technological, Managerial, and Organizational Core Competencies. Both are very well received and very well known. Currently, he is the associate professor at the Federal University of Paraná. His research focuses on sustainability, entrepreneurship, and artificial intelligence. Welcome again, Farley, for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Isabella and Manuel, for this invitation. So I hope we can have a very nice discussion and talking and construction of knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, very looking forward to start talking about the UN goals, the SDGs, business sustainability, start with responsible innovation. Can you tell us a little bit what are the main challenges so far in achieving those goals, and what should be overcome in order to be on top of the SDG UN goals?
Right. Yes, I think your question is very up to date, because many publications in journals like Nature and others, many researchers are very concerned about the time. 2030 is very close, and we are as society far beyond to reach the Sustainable Development Goals as a set of goals. I think the main challenge is first to understand the paradox that exists between some Sustainable Development Goals. Sometimes the economy moves well, but other goals like 13, the climate change and consumption and production concerns, they go in they move in a wrong direction. So I think when the organizations in society accept and acknowledge the paradox of the goals, that's the first point. I think we can think about strategies that can integrate conflicting goals and move on globally. That is the first point. The second point, I think society is needing a kind of feedback control system. We need more and better information about our decisions regarding natural resource consumptions, and so on. So I think we have two main points. The first is to go deeper in the paradox of the Sustainable Development Goals, to understand the conflicts. As we develop one, we can mitigate another goal. And the other problem, in my view, is the kind of communication we must have in this society with a feedback system. We can move in this subject with the next questions.
Absolutely. And actually, I should confess it is the first time one of our guests raises the issue of a paradox in the sustainability goals. In most of our previous discussions, people look at them as being a set of goals which are simultaneously achievable. Would you be able to elaborate a little bit more what the paradox or paradoxes are?
Yeah. So conceptually, the paradox is something like we have two poles. We have two poles that when they are separated, everything looks good. But when you put them together, we start to see the tensions, the conflicts, especially with scarcity of resource, global warming, plurality, many goals, many stakeholders, many industries. So and other breakdown problems like the COVID-19 we had. So these problems, they become more salient, visible when these tensions come together. So, for example, in some countries, if we try to reduce inequality and solve poverty, right? Depending of the strategy that you use to create a social impact regarding poverty reduction and inequality reduction, we can increase the problems of climate change. We can increase the problems regarding consumption and production. So these pairs of goals, for example, Sustainable Development Goal 1 about no poverty and inequality, which is the number 10, this pair of socioeconomic goals, when we put together with the climate change, the 13, and the 12, consumption and production, we can see a kind of tension depending of the strategies that you use. And in this society, despite many companies are moving very good to the ESG, the growth of business as usual is still the main point. So we still have this paradox, this conflict between these goals. And statistical and computational research have demonstrated that in poor countries, as much as we invest in Sustainable Development Goal 1, no poverty, this will create the best synergy, the best impact in all of the other sustainable development goals. Of course, with some conflicts with Sustainable Development Goal 12 and 13 about consumption, production, and climate change. But in less exchange, because these countries, they produce less, they consume less, but they have lots of poverty. Then investing in the Sustainable Development Goal 1 in poor countries is the best strategy. In rich countries, investments must be done to reduce inequality. With a long-term investment, in the Sustainable Development Goal of 12 and 13, which I mean is developing new technologies, clean technologies, products with a smaller footprint, and the actions to low carbon and clean energy, green energy, to feed climate action positively. So in the short term, investments must be done in the Sustainable Development Goal 1 and Sustainable Development Goal 10. In the poor countries in the north, of course, not all countries in the north, they are underdeveloped, but I mean, in the south, pardon. Countries in the south, most of them, they must invest in the Sustainable Development Goal 1. This will create a short-term peak performance. This will impact all of the other Sustainable Development Goals. In the rich countries in the north, inequality must be the target, especially inequality between countries and inside of the country as well. And also investing in new technologies, clean technologies that can alleviate the problems of the 12 and 13 Sustainable Development Goal. And globally, we need some action. We need a program that knowledge from the north about how to improve 12 and 13, the Sustainable Development Goals about sustainable consumption and production and climate change, must flow to the south, right? So then investing in the Sustainable Development Goal 1 and 10 in the short term, together with long-term investments in the Sustainable Development Goals 12 and 13, we can flow a virtual cycle, something that we don't have today. Can we imagine, for example, the billions of dollars that are put in the war, for example? Yeah. I'm not entering this political side. I'm an engineer and scientist. But if you get all of this money and coordinate poverty alleviation in the world, especially improving sanitation, clean water, and clean energy around the world, moving from the north to the south and vice versa. Then we can start this virtual cycle, concentrating in no poverty and inequality. Because many researchers, some researchers have already published and demonstrated that poverty mitigate many of the actions of clean energy and so on. So while we still have poverty in this world, all movement will be slow, and the virtual cycle will be not possible. Then we need to understand this paradox. The first point is to accept that the dimensions of economy, society, and environment, they are in conflict. They will be always in conflict. They are poles of paradox, tensions. What you have to as leaders to make is to understand this paradox, accept, and create a strategy to separate these tensions, these poles, and create mechanisms to intervene in this tension and alleviate this tension all the time, because there is no solution for this wicked problem, this paradox. But we can strategically alleviate this problem, creating virtual cycles. How? Focusing on no poverty, Sustainable Development Goal 1 in the South, investing in inequality in the North in the short term. Now, in the long term, starting now, investing very heavy on clean technologies that can reduce climate problems and unsustainable production and consumption that create lots of waste around the world. So I think this is one of the main points in my 2024 paper to understand this global paradox. When I say about South, I mean countries in the South, but we know that some countries in the South, uh, they, they have a good economy. So we can say that they belong to the South, but they have a foot in the North in the sense of the dimension of the economy. So I'm not separating, breaking in the half the world, the globe. It's just I use the South and North to facilitate the paradox between in the globe, in the South and the North. And what is the priority in the South and in the North? Investments now, Sustainable Development Goal 1 and 10. And in the long term, starting now investing heavily in environmental green technologies that can allow us to escape from climate problems. Um, yeah, I have some other
So,
thoughts, but I will leave for
uh, so
yeah.
you describe actually these virtuous cycles. One clarification, I think when you mention south and north is more like the separation by the uh, global economic indicators, GDP, GDP per capita, and so on, more than geographical, as you very well said. But yes, the tendency is that the low GDP per capita, it's much more in the south part, and the higher ones, it's in the northern hemisphere, if you put it this way. But you mentioned about your paper and the virtual cycles. So you presented us with another paradox. Okay, there is a problem, and the problem, being an engineer myself, usually we're looking for solutions to the problems. And the solution seems to be this virtual cycle. And if I understood it correctly from your presentation so far, the virtual cycle is start from 2 points of the SDGs, depending on the south, north, or GDP per capita, and then in parallel, and I would assume the higher GDP per capita countries have to invest in technologies because they have the technological advantage to come up with renewables to solve or start to solve the sustainability problem. Is it a fair understanding? Do I understand correctly your virtual cycle?
Yes, you are correct. That is the understanding. Of course, for example, we in Brazil, we are very south, and our universities, they have the necessary knowledge to develop this technology in large scale. But I think we need an international program to enter in an international program because knowledge on the paper in the labs is something is like there. We'll talk about that, like the artificial intelligence. Without NVIDIA, Google, and Meta, so on, we could not be at this level of artificial intelligence. Universities, they don't have the money of these companies. Then when you articulate something international, I think it works well. Human beings, they have this ability to address these grand challenges. So you understood very correct. South and North cooperation separating the paradoxical poles and attacking them together with forces from south and north. The probability to develop uh, faster those technologies, I think the great potential is still in the north, with most countries in the north, Europe and North America, and the Nordic countries. So we will need to concentrate as well in the Sustainable Development Goals 16 and 17, which are very well concerned about peace and cooperation, international cooperation, and to see a strategy that alleviates, because improving the South, the North will gain more. Tensions will be less. So I think we have to think about the short-term peak performance with SDG 1 and 10, and long-term performance with SDG 12 and 13, all working together.
Farley, you mentioned also technology, and before we move to the technology in fullest, wanted to mention that also Isabella is a futurist. She's an author of a book, not as many papers as you, but I think she has time to author more books and papers on future, especially the future of technology, especially the future of the artificial intelligence. And, I think I will go a little bit more in questions about the digital transformation and how you overlay, if I may say, digital transformation to the proposed virtual cycles, which, again, for the first time, we see a nuanced approach to SDGs, North versus South, technologically developed versus technology places where technology needs to be applied. So the question really is, how do you see this correlation, this interplay between the future cycles and technology, digital transformation, specifically AI, because these days AI is everything.
Right. Before I enter in these important questions, and congratulations to Isabella, I'm sure she will advance this research, which is, in my view, a very, we are in a very different time of technology AI compared with the time I did my master or PhD 30, 20 years ago. Right. So there is something very interesting that I was invited to talk in a conference about food technology and sustainable foods, whatever. And they were waiting for me to talk about the problems of climate change again, all the grand challenges that the world is surfacing, as United Nations has published, and many well-known scientists has published in the Science, Nature, in great journals. And I was thinking like, wow, why I'm be another one to present this conference. Everybody knows the problems of climate change and so on. Then I was reading the Nobel Prize of Economics, and I like very much Herbert Simon, that talked about bounded rationality and how the economic man has really limitations to make decisions. A limitation of information. We don't have all the information. We don't have all the computational capacity to address like big data of today problems. And I was reading as well Kahneman of 2002. He not received the Nobel Prize of his great work about the a kind of human limitations for decisions. And then later, Richard Taylor received as well a Nobel Prize about this the subject of human irrationality, because we have the information. We read all the day papers, journals, newspapers about the problems of climate change. But I think when we don't have uh, a feedback system, it's very difficult. Suppose I'm going now to a supermarket, right? Then I see there some vegetables, red meat, and I start buying that in my basket. I just put that, select that, and put in my basket. I was imagining a supermarket where the basket could communicate with a digital panel that show how much Farley is consuming in terms of footprint. Then I start to select 1 kilo of red meat or 2 kilos of red meat, and a yellow light bright in the supermarket. The Farley is in the yellow light. Take care with the next step, which is ready, and a bell. Then I have this feedback, but today we don't have this feedback. Then it's very difficult when we don't have feedback. When we humans, we do not see the implications of our decisions. We don't see the long-term implications. So it's very difficult to behave rationally. Then when you imagine a city, a society, yeah, with a growing population, so how to lead a society? I'm not sure if the correct term is leading, but how we stimulate the society to find better decisions without too much work, too much stress. That is something that I like very much, the Nobel Prizes, especially the one Richard Taylor. They talked about this. And I was thinking that one of the main contributions of digitalization, apart from the fact that we can simulate cars in the automotive industry, we can make lots of economy of resource, and we can avoid waste, and there are many other applications in other industries. So I was thinking like that digitalization and artificial intelligence, I see the digitalization as a platform, international platform, controlled by governments and firms, multinational enterprise, whatever. But I think digitalization is very much sparked by the transistors in the 60s. It's not, it's an old technology, not old, but I mean, it is not something of 10 years ago, but much more, a half century ago. But digitalization receive life, not really human life, with the agents of artificial intelligence. So if I have a digital platform running machines with some intelligence, then I start to think digitalization and as a world of agents with some intelligent interactions. So it starts to become like a kind of technology that can be very promising for for solving problems of the virtual cycle, as you mentioned. So what I have read about, I will come back to that. What I have read about AI in sustainability, it's something very operational. Like we use satellites to monitor agriculture, to understand where poor people are located. We humans, we can make that really, if you want. We don't need artificial intelligence to solve the problem of poverty. But I think digitalization with the agents of AI running there, we can have better feedbacks and maybe stimulate the population and inform the population with about their decisions.